Thank you very much for this invitation. When I heard through Dr. Awlaki that Safa and the team were organizing this conference, I said, my goodness, what a coincidence, because I'm doing exactly the same thing on the 22nd of September in Canada, in Ottawa, about, actually the subject is more like violence against women in all its forms. So when I congratulated Safa on doing this, she said, well, if you're interested in the subject, why don't you come along? And I was happily playing golf in Norfolk. So I had to abandon my golf and come down because I feel very strongly about this. But lots of stuff has already been said. In fact, Lubna has said a lot of what I was going to say, and I don't know what to do now. However, I'm going to be somewhat provocative, because if we are not provocative, then nothing gets done, and there's no reaction. And I don't care how violent your questions are to me at the end of the conversation, because that's the only way we're going to go forward, because I think we are living in a state of denial in Yemen in particular, in the Arab world, in the Muslim world, and maybe other parts of the world. And like I did in my novels, I have treated the subject of violence against women in all its forms, in the form of rape, in the form of murder, in the form of abuse, and polygamy, and so on. So it is important to talk about it. And as you know, the Kingsley Amis, the British writer, said, if you can't annoy someone by writing, then don't write. Don't bother to write. So let's talk about this. I think the problem with, I'll come to answer the question that I asked in the title shortly, but I think the problem is really an issue of gender inequality in all its forms. Right from the day that I was born, I was being told that you are the boy of the family. I was the first boy, so that was even better. Yeah. And when my sister came along, even though my father had a PhD from London University, one of the most highly educated men in the whole of Yemen, the first PhD in Yemen, in fact, there was still a slight difference in what my sister Azza could do compared to what I could do. And it was always, I would hear my mother saying, are you going with the boys? You can't do that. And Azza was a very kind of a pig-headed person. She still is. And she said, why not? And she would say, well, because you're a girl. Girls don't do that. And then she had a very nasty kind of crude name for girls who go out with boys, which I dare not say. Even I would not dare use it. So this gender inequality is so permeating the whole of Arab society and Muslim society that unless and until this changes, nothing will change. When Arab girls come to Canada, I will not speak about England because maybe I might make a mistake, but I know in Canada now, the Arab girls who are born there, they are behaving exactly like any white, Anglo-Saxon, Christian, Canadian girl. So there is hardly any problem. There are those who are coming there, at a certain age with their parents, and they are subjected to restrictions. And you might have heard, for example, about the Afghan, Afghan, I think, father who drowned his daughter and his first wife, who is her mother, in a canal actually murdered them and then went to jail. So it's all about honor. It's all about al-awra in Arabic. It's all about virginity. So it kind of really rules how we deal with these issues. I heard that this has nothing to do with Islam. I would beg to disagree. And I told you I'd be provocative. I think when you live in a society that is Muslim, or any society, let's say call them Buddhist, and that society has certain norms, which include the fact that a girl gets half the inheritance, which include that the girl in court, her witness is worth only half that of a man, and which includes that polygamy is quite okay for a man, never for a woman, of course, but there are biological reasons for that, I admit. Yeah. And that wife beating is also okay if a wife is disobedient, and marriage is okay at 9 because Prophet Muhammad married Aisha, and Lubna has already mentioned that. And people forget about Khadija. People select the news and the items of information and the data that they want, and they use it. And then it becomes natural, you know, for an argument for generations to come. And so maybe one day we need to have the women's groups who are trying to correct this situation form alliances with certain people. And this is what I mean by who should speak for women. Alliances with men like me, who do this sort of thing and who speak openly and courageously, if you like, provocatively about it. But also alliances with imams who are progressive. And there are, thank you. There are many progressive imams now. There is one in Ottawa that I interviewed on my radio show just last month, who actually, even though he's an imam, he heads the prayers, he actually is very open in his attitude about dating, for example, in the milieu in which those girls are, and about the issue of polygamy and so on. So I think you ought to make these alliances and include people like that in your conferences and in your delegations when you speak to members of parliament. I mean, here I am, I've just ruined the whole set. Look at them. 7 beautiful women and this old ugly man has been included. Hey, that's innovation, isn't it? Yeah. This issue of chastity and so on is ages long. You know, in the old days, in the days of, a few centuries ago, it was the Europeans who invented the chastity belt when they went to fight in Palestine, the Al-Hurub al-Salibiyya, the Crusades. Okay? But the point is, we have to say, when we talk about these, that was then. We are living now. We have to have new rules. We have to have new order. And I think if you do that, first of all, your daughters who are going to challenge you, there's absolutely no question about that. Eh? Your daughters will challenge you and do things that you don't like. And you will have no choice but to accept that. Unless you want to go back to Yemen and live there under the old rules, that might happen. So you have to find a kind of midway solution with them. There is also an observation that I made about people who, nations who practice these things like female genital mutilation and so on. And these happen to be kind of in Eastern Africa, from Egypt to Sudan to the Horn of Africa, certainly in the Arabian Peninsula, and in the Kurdish community in the Middle East. And yet you don't see that, as far as I know, in very poor countries. I mean, people said, part of this is because of poverty. How come in South America, which is extremely poor, very, very poor people there, they don't have these same rules? Fortunately, here in the UK, since 2003, I think, this practice has been kind of banned, and I think you go to jail for a significant number of years. So I think what you need to do as a group of women is to spread the word. Those people who have not heard about it yet should hear about it, through social media, through your contacts and so on. As we say in Arabic, al-hadiri ilm al-ghaib, in order to put fear in their heart, and if they have not heard about it yet. I think that just as the Arab Revolution was unthinkable and it did happen, the revolution of women will also occur. It'll take some time, but it certainly will happen. I'm going to stop in 2 minutes because there's no need in repeating things, and I think it'll be a good discussion afterwards. But I'll read you a poem that I wrote 35 years ago, and I read it amongst the Arab Canadian Women's Association. And my apologies to those of you who don't speak Arabic, because it was in Arabic, although I do write poetry in English. Bear with me. أنا أنثى من بلاد العرب، ليس لي حق الغرام، ليس لي حق الكلام، لا ولا حتى السلام، دون إذن من شقيقي أو أبي. لقنوني منذ أيام الطفولة أن أحلام الصبا دوما ستبقى مستحيلة، وبأني أم طفل كل همي أن أعوله، ومتاع لذوي المال وأصحاب الرجولة، فحفظت الدرس في جهل وصدقت المقولة، وتواريت بحزني خلف أجفان خجولة. عندما كنت فتاة كم قضيت الليل أقرأ، ثم صليت لربي مغربا ظهرا وفجرا، وتساءلت لماذا لم أكن زيدا وعمرا. حالما نهزت عشرا، حالما أبرزت صدرا، حالما طوقت خصرا، حالما طوقت خصرا، زوجوني ليلة كيدا وقهرا. This is child marriage. من عجوز يدفع الآلاف مهرا، قد هباه الله مالا وكنوز الذهب، وكهل وصبي كلما خارت قواه يقتنى بكرا كأحدى اللعب. أنا أنثى من بلاد العرب، أصبحت أما لبنت وصبي، هي أحلى من أخيها، هي أقوى من ذويها، بل وأذكى من أبيها. أمل الأيام فيها من سيحظى بيديها، أبدا لن يشتريها. هي حسن وجمال ونقاء كالزلال، واحتشام فاغتيال، وهدوء فانفعال، واتزان فاشتعال. سوف تصبو للمحال، ولئن شط المنال لن تبالي بالرجال، لن تبالي بالرجال، أو بعم أو بخال، أو بقيل أو بقال، أو أحاديث العيال. زال ذاك العهد يا قوم، وقد هل الهلال.